The Native people of Canada have suffered a hard and violent history. Within the first 200 years of European settlement, the Native population itself dropped 90%. Since then, the First Nations people of Canada have endured several wars, discrimination, land disputes, loss of culture and cultural identity, poverty, widespread substance abuse, depression, and assimilation into European culture. The treatment and state of Native people in Canada has been and remains a leading issue despite lack of attention and understanding by the general Canadian public. To explore this issue further, we are going to compare and contrast the knowledge and views of everyday Canadians to the actual truth of the issue.
No, it isn't. I don't believe it is. I believe there are bigger issues out there that we could focus on more. Native people have been too long oppressed by the government and deserve to be treated with respect and justice.
Well, back in the fur trade, I remember that they were they had less beads than us, and they didn't live in towns. So I suppose they are doing so well. Which actually reminds me of the time when I was canoeing up the Hudson.
Sure, it's an issue, but there's not much we can do about it because ultimately they did it to themselves. Yes. Yes, it is. I actually have no idea what a Native person is.
The conditions that Native people live in Canada are deplorable, and not just the government of Canada, but the people of Canada owe it to them as fellow citizens to be able to receive the same standards as the majority of the population. Although the issue is a tangled one that goes back centuries, that is no excuse for lack of action. If we as a country cannot look after those closest to us, then we are in no way fit to assume responsibility for other countries.
Their health problems are probably pretty much the same as mine. I have a rash. Is that okay? Natives face tougher economic situations, so I'm guessing that they face more health problems as well. Native people are really healthy. Their culture is focused around being healthy. They live outdoors. They're constantly running around, and therefore their muscles are used more frequently. Therefore, their bodies are healthy.
Native communities struggle with many different health concerns. In recent decades, the suicide rate on Native reserves has surged. The average suicide rate among Aboriginal youth is 108 deaths per 100,000 youths, 6 times higher than the average youth suicide rate across Canada. Alcohol and drugs play a major role in this. 1/3 of all deaths on Native reserves occur while the victim is intoxicated. Also, due to changes in physical activity and diet, many Natives suffer from diabetes and heart problems. The reason for this poor health can be traced back to financial stress, loss of cultural values, and poor living conditions.
Native people are very rich. They get scholarships whenever they need them. They don't have to pay taxes, and the government practically pays for everything. I've never met a Native person, so I can tell you.
Natives face tough economic conditions. The unemployment rate among Native people is several times the Canadian average. An average Native person's annual salary is $9,000 less than the average Canadian, and Native people rely on social assistance more than any other ethno-cultural group in Canada. The plots of land Native communities receive through treaties are generally small, and if they're suitable for agriculture, then they're probably further down south, where other jobs are available. The reason many Native people are in poor economic situations is because of lower levels of education, cultural differences, and being far away from main centers of the economy.
Oh, the government gives them lots of money. A little while back, I remember I had a friend who was Native, and he got $5 for the land and the treaty and ammunition for a year. And now, back then, that was a lot of stuff, and the natives would just...
The government is doing different stuff to ensure that Native people are better, but I'm not sure what kind of effect this is having. The government is spending too much time on the Native people, and they deserve to be like you and me. Huh? Yeah. Okay.
There are many different programs helping and supporting Native communities. The government has, in recent decades, improved the quality of water treatment and sewage disposal in over 90% of all Native reserves, and has different programs focused around providing housing that meets the National Building Code standards. The current government mandate requires that $4.9 billion is directed towards registered Indians living on reserves, and the government has in recent years given Native people more freedom of self-government. Along with that, there has also been an increase in education geared more towards helping Native children learn about their culture, which may be one of the reasons for higher enrollment rates at Native schools. In general, small signs are beginning to appear indicating a more prosperous future for Native people.
I think for Native people to be more comfortable in Canada, they need to be, their culture needs to fade into ours. Huh? They need to be the same, as it were. Huh? There needs to be less government control of Native people in Canada.
I think the government should give them more stuff. When I was back with Louis Riel, I remember the natives, they used to wear the animals.
How should Canada solve this issue? My best guess would be a segregation of cultures.
There's no clear answer to this question, but there are certain things we can assume will be profitable for the Native community. First and foremost is a strong contemporary connection between Native people and their culture. This has proved and continues to prove to be an important aid in holding Native communities together and keeping them strong. However, it is important that this connection be contemporary because although Native culture helps build identity and strength, it is no longer practical for Native people to live wholly traditional lifestyles. A balance must be found, a balance between tradition and modern society, a balance between government support and Native independence, and a balance between objective analysis of the issue and compassionate action. The betterment of the First Nations people of Canada is not only a responsibility of the people themselves or that of the government, but a collective responsibility held by all those who call themselves Canadian. We can in no way find our own standard of living in this country acceptable if we do not also allow those in less fortunate positions than ourselves receive the same standards. By calling ourselves democratic in nature, we must become democratic in practice and aid those who help us make up this land we call Canada.